Today I'm feeling a little bit guilty. I haven't done anything, and it's a common recurring feeling. I feel guilty for merely existing. Do you sometimes feel like that? That there's an undercurrent of shame, that somehow your existence is not intrinsically valuable, that you have to prove your worth in some way. I have felt this all my life, and I've been aware of it for a long time. It's what has made making videos like this actually quite difficult, because I'm very cautious to not try to prove to myself that I do indeed need to extract value in some way through something like this. It's taken many attempts to feel like I can be authentic and genuine, whilst also not abandoning myself. So I think we can very easily trace back the origins of this feeling of guilt and shame to trauma. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. The trauma has happened. However it occurred is moot now. There's no going back. There's no undoing it. So we're left with this feeling, this latent, dormant undercurrent of guilt and shame that every so often, with pretty good frequency, rears its ugly head. It's a lot to carry every day, to wake up and to feel like you cannot just imbibe your felt sense and your subjective experience of life. You cannot live. You have to filter it through this inner assessor, this inner audience that needs to sign off on everything that you're not only doing, but thinking and feeling. It's a very difficult thing to try to reclaim that sense of sovereignty in yourself, isn't it? To feel like your experience, your perception of the world, your sensations, your thoughts and feelings, how you relate to the world, is all under surveillance of some kind and not free to simply be. It's very difficult. So what do we do? How do we ground ourselves and root ourselves in our own sense of being, of experiencing reality, experiencing ourselves, without being constantly flooded by this externalization, this deep sense of unsafety and insecurity, that we shouldn't be here unless we can somehow prove that we should be here. And I think trauma is only half the origin of that. I think the other half is a different kind of trauma, not from the family home upbringing, but from conditioning in society. I mean, just look at our capitalistic system. It is predicated on an extraction dynamic that requires that all of its citizens must prove themselves in some way. And this is literally measured by money. So of course, if you're someone like me who doesn't have much money, you are inherently worth less to the system. Worthless to the system. And that is not how human beings are built. That is not how we create true value and worth. And that is certainly not how we are measured. So there's nothing we as individuals can really do, except en masse, of course. But bringing it down to the individual level, there's nothing each of us can really do to change the past in terms of our trauma. We can do the work to heal from it, to understand it, and to move into our bodies and out of our minds. But we can't undo what happened. And in the same way, each of us can't really do anything about the global system of capitalism that we live in. Again, we can band together and change things slowly over time. But right here, right now, in this moment, for me, for you, for anyone else that resonates with this message, there's very little we can do to change the fact that the human world that we live in is predicated on this sense of extraction of our own inherent value, that we need to prove ourselves in some way. So what do we do about that? What can we do about that in ourselves? One, I suppose, as I have done, we can try to remove ourselves as much as possible from the system. For someone like me, it has become so toxic that I cannot assimilate, and I will not assimilate. I have had to survive by other means, but it is something that drives me to the cliff's edge, and it has all my life, and I am tired of being blamed for that, of feeling like I'm the broken one. Krishnamurti said, "It is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And I find that deeply validating. I find a lot of solace in that, reminding myself that this is not natural. This system that we've built, this civilization that we've built, it is what is broken. It is not the denizens that reside trapped within it. Two, we can try to find value in ourselves through our direct experience of life, to reconnect with our private and personal relationship to experience. And that is my focus, I think. Because I have felt very divorced from my own sense of experience, my own subjectivity. Like I've said before, I have objectified it, or rather, the world has taught me to objectify it. I wasn't allowed to think my own thoughts. I without being severely reprimanded, or feel my own feelings without told that I was wrong and ridiculed for them, and even told that, no, that's not how I feel, I'm mistaken. I was gaslit time and again as a child for having my own feelings that might upset or cause dysregulation in a parent. And of course that was deeply unsafe. A child finds their only sense of security in a parent, so what do to adapt? They learn to bury their feelings, or in my case, my very sense of self. So I think one thing we can do to say, fuck the trauma and fuck the system, is to delve deep into the sense of self. Now this gets tricky, especially if you're anything like me and were raised on a steady diet of New Age spirituality. You'll have at a very young age seen the self as a bad thing, the ego as a bad thing. And I ate it up. I ate it all up when I was very young. I needed to, because it was my way of spiritually bypassing all of the pain. I needed to put myself aside for the other, in which all of my security was wrapped up. And now, later in life, when all the trauma bubbles to the surface again, I have for the last 5 years or so gone through a very, very dark night of the soul, where I have had to realize that I was trying to become nobody before I had become somebody. And as we know, the only way to become nobody, in the transcendent sense, is to first be somebody. So what happens to a child who has spiritually bypassed their sense of self before they have developed a sense of self in a healthy human way? Well, they come of age and they learn that their needs don't matter, and they find themselves associating with people that will take advantage of that, just like childhood. And they teach themselves that they're not valuable, they're not worthy, and that is where the guilt and the shame comes from, of feeling at all like you are. So, I have come to recognize that whenever I feel guilt and shame in this way, it's actually a sign that I have been, probably recently, feeling connected to my deep sense of self, which of course immediately causes the reaction inside me of feeling like it's selfish, self-absorbed, self-centered, all the things that I was called as a child whenever I wasn't catering to the emotional whims of my mother. So I hold my heart in those moments where I feel guilt and shame. I hold that poor little boy who felt so guilty for being, for thinking what he thought and feeling what he felt. I hold his heart. And instead of giving him a hug, I become him and receive hug. And I think that's a very important distinction to make, because we've often been told to love ourselves as if we're the one being proactive and loving this other in us. But I think for true healing to take place, we need to inhabit that other, that one we have abandoned. We need to become that child again, feel what it's like to be that child again, and receive that love and that hug, rather than be the one that gives it, because that's what we've always done. We've always been the one to give it. We need to receive it, starting with ourselves. So that's another way we can say, fuck trauma and fuck the system. Perhaps the most powerful way we can, because it's not the system really a consequence of too many of us not doing the work. Funny word that, isn't it? Where the system is predicated on work to extract value from you, and yet most people avoid the hardest work a human being can do, the inner work. Funny that. Be kind to yourself, friend.